So in terms of the session today, we're looking at website spring cleaning. And that is a really interesting topic. If you've not been on webinars before with us, just bear in mind that everybody's on listen only mode because we don't want lots of feedback on the line. But if you do have any questions, please put them into this box here on the panel that's on the right hand side of your screen, and we'll answer those as soon as we can. On the line today, you've got myself, I'm John Eaton, Head of Digital Strategy and Sales at i3, and we've also got Keith Gutu, who is our Marketing Manager.
Yeah, hi guys, looking forward to a great session with a lot of good takeaways and a lot of helpful practical tips that have certainly worked for us internally in i3 and some of our clients as well. So I look forward to what should be a great session.
Thanks a lot, Keith. That's great. Just going to check again that someone else has got a question here. I think everyone can now hear, which is great. So that's good news. So moving on to the agenda today, we're going to be looking at 4 key areas. First of all, steps you can take to make your website faster. We're then going to be looking at reviewing 404s to see where content went missing from your current website and looking at how you could optimize that. We're going to look at reducing bounce rate on high traffic landing pages and some tools that can help you to do that really effectively. And we're also going to look at conversion rates issues and help you to think about solutions that will come into play really quickly and therefore start to make an impact on your bottom line very fast. So in terms of why a website spring clean, I think, Keith, you were quite eager to ask this question because we've talked a lot about UX and GDPR recently. But from your point of view, I think, you were quite interested in talking about some of the reasons that people spring clean at this time of year, weren't you?
Yes, I was. The main reason for that is what tends to happen, or what we've seen over the years, of what tends to happen within organizations is once a website project is finished and is up, what a lot of organizations do is tend to just, leave it at that and leave the websites as they are. And obviously that has its own downfalls. It's something, spring clean, not only in your house or in your office, is something that you need to do on your website as well, not only to keep up with ongoing trends, but also to fix any quick, easy wins that you can do easily on your website, which is something that we've done internally as well, and something that we sort of monitor on a monthly basis, I would say, to obviously maximize the performance of our site as well.
And I think you're going to mention there about spring being a popular time to do that. Is that principally because of the fact people are not doing transformational work at this point?
Yeah, that is true as well. A lot of projects obviously do take part in a certain time of year, and obviously with budgets being tight, it's always spring cleans are always a good way to quickly and not on the cheap, but cheaply do maximize and optimize your website as well. And I know there's certain periods in which organizations go through big, large transformational projects. So spring cleans are always quite a good tool to have in terms of getting those quick wins that you can do without, maximize, without sort of going through your budget for the year.
I think we just pulled up that next bullet point there. I think one of the things that we see is organisations being in this tricky time, normally at this sort of stage, where they've got to support an existing site, but also get something else built or spend money on other areas of their marketing and advertising. And actually, this sort of activity can save you money and make you money, which is good to have within a marketing department or a digital department, so you can then invest that cash in other areas. The last thing that we were going to sort of pull up is that if you don't review performance every 12 months or so, you will miss new trends. And there's a really interesting one at the end of this presentation that we're going to go through. But basically, anything from updates to algorithms, changes in user experience and expectations generally, all that sort of stuff, is things that you will not spot if you just get complacent, like Keith was saying. So we're going to start by talking about website speed and a few things that you may not know. Keith and I had a lot of fun putting these together just because there's some amazing statistics on the web about website speed. And a lot of them focus on particular areas. When you put them together, it's quite a scary story. So 25% of visitors on average leave pages that take more than 4 seconds to load. And that in itself isn't that scary, apart from the fact that 64% of mobile users also expect pages to load faster than 4 seconds. So if you're in a business which is experiencing more and more people switching to mobile away from conventional desktop browsing, then speed's become a much more important issue over the last couple of years in terms of real impact on conversion. Another thing that we found is that 79% of customers who report speed performance issues never buy again from that website. And both of us have been in that situation, haven't we? So I think I was booking a holiday a couple of years ago with Experian, and the website experience was so bad that I've never booked again with them since.
Yeah.
And similarly, Keith, I think you were talking about something you bought recently.
Yeah, something that I bought recently. Well, actually, it happened a few months ago. I was thinking about leaving my current mobile phone provider, so EE, and I went to another well-known mobile phone provider to obviously see what deals they can offer me and what. But the user experience and the website was so laggy that within a couple of minutes I got frustrated and I left the site and just decided to stay with EE. So that's how much of an impact website speed can have. And it's one of those things where a lot of companies don't sort of realize or take that into consideration when they're initially building their websites, and obviously ongoing optimization as well. It's a really key area, which obviously the search engines as well are keen to look at as well. So for me personally, as an experience and for businesses wider, I think that's a really good point. Website speed is something to look at constantly.
I think just to put some meat on the bones of that, we found this statistic which we thought was really interesting. So a 1 second increase in the amount of time it takes to render a web page can decrease page views by 11% and conversions by 7%. So just in case you weren't sure about what the impact of a slightly laggy site is on your overall experience for customers, it can be really, really, really severe. Just going to check out another one of the questions we've had here through. Right. The audio, I think we're still having some problems with, so please do bear with us. I think we're just experiencing some network issues here at the moment. We will obviously make the recording available to everybody after the session and also all the slides as well. Right, so what impacts website speed? Well, first of all, images. That's one of the most common things we see in our website speed audits, isn't it, Keith?
Yeah, it is. And as somebody who, on a day-to-day basis, updates our own personal website here at i3, it's something that's been ingrained within me from the day go, from our developers, our internal developers, is to optimize every image that you put on, make sure it's optimized as much as possible. To give you an example, the number of images that we have currently in our media library, in the back end of our CMS, I think it's numbering almost 500 images. So you can almost imagine how, if those images weren't optimized, how slow and laggy the website would be. So optimizing your images before you upload them is one of the things that is definitely something to watch out for and take heed to.
If you've got a lot of images naturally, another thing to consider is integrating with a CDN, and a lot of organizations don't do that, which is a shame because it means, again, the website speed drops, the page engagement drops, and then ultimately the conversions drop. So it's definitely in your interest to do that. Another area where website speed is affected dramatically is in the quality of front-end code that's produced. At i3, we've recognised for a number of years now that front-end development is its own discipline. And a lot of agencies still see front-end development and back-end development of putting big CMSs in or doing integration work as being one skill set. it's not. And if you rely on people to do both jobs, you tend to get not very good front end, because the back end development is the thing that really is important in the developer's mind. The next thing to think about is servers. So a lot of the time people buy websites and they don't think about their server environment because they've signed up to a 3 or 4 year deal. They just assume it's okay. Over time, the suitability of server environments can become not as good as it was when you originally did the project, particularly if you're working with a content management system where there is a lot of upgrades that have happened over that period of time. It might be time to consider cloud-based hosting. And then finally, we wanted to talk about 3 content management systems that we see a lot that have issues with performance, particularly speed. The first 2 there, Drupal and WordPress, typically we'll see a lot of plugins have been used, and therefore maybe they introduce problems that aren't dealt with in the same way as you'd have with a coherent standard centralized code base. The last one there, Telerik Sitefinity or Progress Sitefinity, has been historical from the point of view of having problems with speed, and that's to do with the way in which the website CMS page templates are rendered into a browser and the way it uses caching. It can really slow down performance. So sometimes it might be that you need to change your content management system in order to tackle your speed problem. So in terms of how we fix those issues at i3, Keith, you're going to talk about the 2 elements here, weren't you? So the audit we initially do, and then followed up by the piece of work that enables us to be able to quantify how to fix them.
Yeah, I mean, what we do internally is we regularly perform website health checks. What that involves is using actually free tools such as GTmetrix and ping-dom tools, which are quite easy to use, and from people who are not developers, they're quite easy to read in terms of the results that you get from them. All you do is enter in your website URL, search for the results, and the results come up, and it's quite interesting looking at the results, because what they show you is things like sort of average load time, page size, so the things that would be driving your website speed and slowing that down, and obviously what it comes with is a set of recommendations as well as to what exactly is affecting the website speed. So things like if your images are too big, it will show you what size images are and what optimum size you need to get those reduced to. And obviously other things such as your CSS and your HTML files as well. But it's a great tool, and it's something that has actually gained quite a lot of popularity in terms of our clients and other prospects coming to us and saying, look, we've got problems with our website performance. Can you have a look at it? What do you guys recommend? And it's good. It's a good initial start to the conversation of, okay, at a tertiary level, at a high level, this is what's wrong with the website. Here's some of the things that we can do for quick, easy wins. And then obviously from that point, if there are any sort of back-end issues that need to be looked at, we then lead into another discussion of, what can we do in terms of, going into the back-end and fixing any coding problems or any caching or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Obviously, there's only so much you can see using these tools, but the thing that we do a lot of is once we've had that initial conversation with the client about what the problems are, we'll then get access to the code base and the CMS and fully do a bit of a sort of deeper dive and identify things that are really problematic. So that's really interesting. In terms of reviewing 404s, it's something that I wish more organisations would do. So a lot of the clients that me and Keith start working with, one of the first things we get asked to do as part of the project is to review the Google Analytics. And it's amazing how many clients have got problems with 404s and they don't even realise it. So this is 2 screens that we've pulled out of Google Webmaster Tools. The first one on the left-hand side is page not found. So you can actually find page not found errors within Google Analytics, but Google Webmaster Tools gives you a more kind of comprehensive view of things that exist because they've been found via crawl as well as via people actually putting them in and therefore being recorded in analytics. And on the right-hand side there, we've got server errors. And interestingly, with the server error reports, again, an amazing number of organizations will come to us and say, we have a problem because our website goes down. But there's not really any interest in why it's going down. So what are people hitting in terms of popular pages that are causing the website to fall over? If you have access to that information, obviously what you can do there is you can go, right, are we getting a lot of people to that particular section? If so, could we be looking at a load balance solution to that problem to make sure that we don't have people who fall over when they hit pages in too high a frequency? We're not completely immune ourselves to having issues with 404s. So one of the ways you can do this is if you go into Google Analytics and you search for the highest pages in terms of bounce rate on your site, often you'll find pages in the 90s, which might not have turned up as 404 pages within Google Webmaster Tools because your site might not have been crawled in that period. But you'll be able to sort of identify relatively quickly that that's abnormally high. So on those page views there, we've found that our Kensko Island page has got a very high bounce rate. And actually, we found out that it is ultimately a 404. People are going to a page that no longer exists. What we're going to do about that? Well, we're going to put that page back live again because we're still achieving a relatively decent volume of traffic, but we're sending it nowhere. And often, you might decide to remove those sorts of pages without realizing that you're getting referral traffic through from other sources. So it's just something to keep an eye on, because obviously if you're losing that traffic, then it's lost traffic that's probably worth something to you. Moving on to reducing bounce rate now. I'm going to pull up a couple of slides here from Google Analytics and going into lead forensics, and I'll explain why I've talked about all three of these areas. So one of the main issues that we have from the point of view of looking at analytics is trying to make sense of why people are bouncing. So that behavioral flow over diagram there on the left-hand side, that basically looks at where people are landing in the site and the typical journeys that they're going through. And from looking at that view, you can start to go, well, you know, a lot of people are landing on these particular pages and only a very small percentage of them are going somewhere else. Why is that? What should we be doing in order to improve that? On the right-hand side, with the organic traffic graph that we've pulled up there, this is looking at the number of people who arrive on our website in week 1, and then to the right-hand side, you've got what percentage of them are coming back in, weeks 2 to 7. Now, the reason for doing that is to understand what level of engagement we're getting from people who have hit our sites and don't figure up in bounce rates. People who might go to a couple of pages and then go, not interested anymore. Our view is that the more people you can get coming back regularly, the better. So, what we're trying to do there is understand how we can improve the overall retention of users over a period of time. And then finally, what we recommend is going outside of just the data view. So Keith, you do quite a lot of work with our lead forensics product, don't you?
Yeah, tools such as lead forensics are quite good. And not only as much as Google Analytics is good at telling you the numbers, as in the stats of what's going on, sometimes it's hard to get an overall picture of who exactly is coming to your site and what they're actually looking at. And tools such as lead forensics, which we use internally, is quite good at picking up IP addresses of who's exactly landed on our page. And obviously what they've been looking at as well. And not only does this help you understand who your core customers are, what it does as well, it helps you sort of tailor your message as well, which is really quite good. And I think, lead forensics has been quite good for us in that sense, and we've only been using it, I think, for about 8 months now. But it's been a great tool.
Yeah, because I think the key thing is that as much as you do have specific, general reasons for people bouncing, such as poorly designed web pages, potentially issues with speed, issues with messaging, you've also got specific reasons. So it might be that the way in which you're communicating to certain organizations just isn't going to float their boat. So it's good for you to look for specific reasons as well as general reasons as to why bounce rates can be high. In terms of other tools you could be using for bounce rate, we are a massive fan of Hotjar. And there's two areas I wanted to quickly show you. There is the ability to look at how many people on the left-hand side scroll down your page to important call to actions. So if you've got a desired journey, but you find lots of people are falling off, one of the commonest things that we find is that actually you've put the call to action so far down the page that nobody ever sees it. So it's just a question of rejigging the page and making sure that the next page path you want them to go on is much clearer. To the right-hand side there, you've got somebody going absolutely insane on the lead forensics session tracking. What this basically shows you is beyond the data, there'll be stages on a website journey where somebody pauses, gets confused, loses interest and leaves. That's what that tool allows you to do. So it actually physically records the sessions and allows you to look at how the sessions are going wrong. So it's a bit like being able to do user testing without having to go through the problems of recruiting users. It's exactly the same way as Google Analytics, just as a piece of script into the source code of your site. So in terms of spotting issues in conversion rate, there were a couple of different areas I wanted to talk about. So we talked about Google Webmaster Tools earlier on, and I think the main areas that are going to have an impact on conversion rate there are spotting crawl errors, and also spotting significant drops in important keywords. That might not be done anything wrong. It might be that your competitors have picked up. One of the things that we spot quite a lot, and Keith, you'll have seen this with some of our clients, is that some of the keywords that our clients are found for are very much early stage browsing keywords, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, and a lot of the times, especially in companies that have niche industries where a lot of the keywords are not sort of everyday common keywords used, you find that some of the keywords that are being found for are completely not relevant to what they do as a business. So it is something to definitely look out for, and using things such as Google's search console are quite good at keeping track of that, and obviously Google AdWords as well is quite good at keeping the track of what keywords you're being found for. And in fact, actually, lead forensics, which we spoke about earlier on, actually has a capability of tracking keywords and what keywords you're being found for as well. And all that does is helps you sort of, tailor your content and your messaging around what you want to be found for rather than what the industry.
I think it's really important to factor in as well that there are some keywords that you're found for when customers are in that early buying stage, so they're not going to make a decision about buying anything, and the conversion keywords will happen later. But unless you're found for those early stage keywords, you're not going to be in the race towards the end of the customer making a decision. So those are two areas where certainly you can spot issues that can be rectified before they cause you a problem down the line. The funnel view in Google Analytics, well, it's really simple. It allows you to spot drop-offs in key journeys at a stage-by-stage basis. Amazingly, again, I think of all the sites that we inherit, what would you say, about 10% of people have funnels set up, if not less?
Yeah, I would say that. It is always quite surprising to see, how there's all these tools that can certainly help improve conversions, but not a lot of people either don't know of them or actually don't know how to set them up properly and read the results properly as well. So it is quite surprising when you see, pretty big organizations that, don't utilize these tools, which are absolutely free tools. And once you get into them, they're quite easy to read in terms of the results and what you can do to improve your conversions as well. So.
Cool. iPerceptions is a tool I absolutely love and nobody uses it. But basically asks users in real time questions about their experience. And the benefit about that is it moves you out of looking for incremental increases to known conversions and actually can tell you about bits of functionality or experience that are missing for users. That if you can put that right, it opens up a whole different possibility in order to be able to increase your conversion rate. So it takes you out of wondering whether you should put a button here or there to thinking about actually, maybe I should be thinking about rejigging this experience to deliver something much better and getting the rewards through more conversions later on. Another thing that I always recommend is talking to the sales team, because as much as you can, as a digital marketer, create what you think are conversions, whether it's leads from a website or sales that are transacted on a website and go into a warehouse, often you can get a bit overexcited and think, great, the conversions are up compared to the last site. But it might be that actually the average transaction value or the quality of the inquiries that you're producing aren't as good. That might lead you to the question of, are you passing on inquiries or sales too early? Is there more we could be doing to qualify that journey, to try and extend the value that we can get out of that conversion, and therefore produce a better result for the business that we work for? And then we've talked about lead forensics and MailChimp. Lead forensics, not MailChimp yet. But the advantage of this, like I was saying earlier on looking at bounce rate, is that you can find out which organizations are converting. And you probably want to think about whether you should be moving from broadcast, hitting everybody with the same message at the same time, to a more tailored communication strategy that manages to touch on the wants and needs of individuals rather than an overall kind of assumed perception of what everybody wants, which ultimately doesn't deliver a result. So how can you start to improve conversion rates quickly? Well, one of the first things you can do is move, as I was saying, from that broadcast model into that tailored model. And you'd need to use some sort of marketing automation or personalization software to do that. So this example here is looking at somebody who's interested in giraffes and trying to get them to a point where they're warmed up enough where they're going to react positively to a discount coupon. Obviously, not everybody is interested in all the different stuff that you offer. So it's about helping them to get towards that point where they've shortlisted one or two things that they're interested in, and then we can ask them to take action. Another thing that you can do is use A/B testing tools. Obviously, Kentico is an example, but there's loads of others you can use, like Optimizely. And what that's good for is, if you do want to make a result happen quickly, if you work towards one solution and you put that solution live after a prolonged period of time and it doesn't work, then you're just exactly at the same situation, if not worse, as you were 2 or 3 weeks or months beforehand. So I think it's really important to see if you can introduce those sort of tools relatively quickly if you can, because they give you the levers to be able to increase conversion rates. I think, Keith, you're somebody who's very keen on this sort of stuff, aren't you, with our partners like Kentico and Sitecore?
Yeah, it is. Not only does it help for myself, my day-to-day job, it makes it a lot easier if you have such tools that automate the marketing journey, and it helps a lot. So when you do all the stats and you look at all the results from Google Analytics and lead forensics, and you've got a good indication of who your customer is and what they're looking at, it's good to get them the right message at the right time, and time your follow-ups quite well as well. So you warm them up slowly until you get to a point where they're ready to buy your service or product. So yeah, I would definitely highly recommend utilizing any marketing automation tool that you can get your hands on. And obviously, if that's something that you want any advice on, we're always here to advise anybody on that, and as well as obviously share our personal experiences in terms of using marketing automation tools as well.
We've got a bit of a tricky question here after you've just said that from somebody who said, well, I haven't got marketing automation tools. What are my options?
Well, that is a very good question. That is a very good question, and I think it's something that we sort of grapple with internally as well. So not everything that we do internally is automated, and obviously we're sort of working our way towards that. But one thing that I would say is getting your ducks in a row in terms of using all those tools to know what exactly it is that your customers want, and how you can sort of approach them and warm them up is key, really. And even if for the initial part you're doing things manually in terms of obviously gathering the data and then manually sending out whether it's emails or social campaigns, all that sort of gathering of all that information and having it to your hand, it makes it a lot easier when you do get to a stage where the business feels like marketing automation will be a great investment, which is something that we're currently doing as well. We're sort of in the midst of getting to a point where we are using more and more of these marketing automation tools.
So I think the key thing there is obviously if you don't have these tools available, the theory behind them and being a customer-centric organisation is still a principle that you can adopt. So the key thing is just to think about those people as individuals and work out what you want to send to them. And there will be ways in which you can do that, even if you do not have a tremendous amount of technology behind you to help you switch things on and off if you need to. So that brings us up to the sort of end of the key presentation. So we're going to go into some takeaways here. So in terms of website speed, you should definitely be testing that, and you should be looking at whether improvements to your server, CMS, your way in which you manage assets, or your front-end code could be introduced so that you can start to reduce the impact of negative speed. Use Google Webmaster Tools and Google Analytics to look at your 404s, and if people are still visiting pages that you've deleted, then ultimately you should reinstate them because you've made a mistake and you want to try and capture that traffic and work out whether you convert it onto a different service or a different product. Consider why your bounce rates are high. Is it isolated to certain types of users? And if it is, what can you do to try and tackle that problem? Even if you haven't got personalization technology, think about ways in which you can flag on home pages, for example, if you're a certain type of user, this particular offer or service or product is relevant to that person. And the last point is to keep an eye on the early indicators of conversion rate decline. And you should consider moving away from broadcast telecommunications, as Keith said. And if you haven't got the tools to do that, it's still possible. It's still a manual process. And the last thing I was going to mention is to be aware of emerging trends, because there are emerging trends and they're often quite unusual. You wouldn't have seen them coming. So this is an article from eConsultancy, which is claiming that 84% of marketing organizations are using machine learning. Machine learning is being used a lot, particularly within search engines, to try and pick up on trends in the general mood. So if you're an e-commerce provider, as an example, it might be that a particular product that you've got that you sell is particularly relevant because there's been a lot of public interest over that week or so because of particular campaigns that have been done by competitors. If you're able to integrate into machine learning, and there's a lot of tools that you can integrate with if you're using cloud-based hosting environments, you can start to put messages automatically in front of people at the right time, based on the fact that there's more interest in that product or service at a particular time because of general trends outside of your control. The thing I was really surprised about is 84% of people using it. Certainly in the clients that I talk to, it's nowhere near 84%. But if you've got an eye on the future, you might be able to spot that there are trends upcoming that you can take advantage of before your competitors have, and therefore that gives you an opportunity to do something that's very disruptive within your market and with the benefits. So that's the end of the full presentation. We're just going to go into the questions bar now to see if we've got anybody with any queries. I think just opening this up now. Ooh, there we go. So I think one of the questions we've got here is, well, it's directed at you, Keith. So in terms of a speed analysis, what typically would that process look like? Is it just getting in touch with yourself and
well, if in doubt, and you do feel like you're having speed performance issues on your website, if you do get in touch with myself, Keith at i3digital.com, I'll be able to give you handy tips and pointers to free tools that we use as well that can help with that. Like I said earlier on, it's a simple matter of typing in your URL into things like gtmetrics.com and Pingdom tools. And the results are pretty easy to use and read, because like I said, it tells you exactly what your speed is, what particular issues have been flagged up, and how you can potentially remedy those issues as well. So if you do have any doubt or any questions after this, I mean, we do have a handout that you can download after this session. It has our contact details there. So if you do have any questions or any tips that you need or advice, then yeah, I'll be happy to provide those for you.
Cool, brilliant. And somebody else here has asked what generally can be expected in terms of improvement to performance if you do go through the process of changing your 404s back to pages that exist and adding new pages that were previously 404s and solving your speed problems. And I think just to answer that question, it really depends on the kind of business that you are, but it can make a lot of difference. We've had a number of clients who've come on board with us over the last couple of years who've been through the process of reviewing their health of the website with us. And some of them have gone on to be promoted inside their organizations, have delivered millions of pounds of additional turnover. For others, the improvements are smaller, but again, it's incremental change over time that allows you to hit big numbers. So yeah, absolutely, it's something that's worth doing. And as Keith was saying, if you have any questions after this webinar, please do get in touch with him. We'll be able to help you. So that's the end of the questions, I think, at this stage. Nobody else seems to have chirped up. So in terms of the next webinar, so we're talking mid-June, as we said, and the two topics that we'd like you to look at with us are potentially UX and apps or international websites. So if you've got a strong feeling for either one of those, please do contact us after this webinar and just let us know the sort of things you'd like us to cover off. As I said, next month we're not doing a webinar, but we will be sending on a list of the recordings of all the ones we've done so far. So I think that's about it for today. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you found that interesting, and apologies for the technical issues that we faced today. As Keith said, the handout is available following this webinar, and if you do want a copy of the recording, in case you won't be able to hear so well, again, that's something we can provide. Thank you very much from me and Keith.
Yep, thank you very much, everyone. Like John said, the handout is available to download. You'll be able to see that on your panels, and a recording of the session will be available after the webinar. So thank you very much, and yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed the session and got a lot of practical tips from that.
Brilliant. Have a great week, and we'll speak to you all again soon.